This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Good morning. Welcome to Racing Across America for this Tuesday morning. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining us. Coming up a little later on the show, Charlie Hayward is going to join us. He's launched a new website called thoroughbredracing.com, which is essentially a new website that has a lot of articles out there, fresh content, thoroughbred racing commentary. There's a lot of concentration on international racing. Just going to have Charlie on to kind of talk a little bit about the website and tell us a little bit about their mission and just tout you on a new website that's out there for following racing and reading some commentary on the racing game. So that'll be coming up at about 10:15. A little later, Gary Johnson from Beulah Park, his regular Tuesday visit. He'll give us some thoughts for Beulah for this afternoon. Towards the end of the program, Michael Chamberlain with his regular Tuesday visit. He'll talk a little bit about Turf Paradise for this afternoon. We'll also do a little preview. They have a nice weekend of racing coming up. I think there are 3 stakes races on the card, but the big one, the $75,000 Phoenix Gold Cup, that'll be on Saturday. So it's a little early, but we'll take a little bit of a preview of some of the Saturday stakes out at Turf Paradise as well with Michael Chamberlain. Some good news in the news over the past day and a half or so, I guess, in that Fort Erie, who has been sitting on the chopping block now, really since their season ended last year. It looked like things were kind of bleak for them. They have been 3, 4, at least the last couple of years. They have ended a season and really just have been sitting on pins and needles waiting to see whether they'd have another season set. And part of that has been tied into going back a couple of years when the government took the slots away from the racetracks. That certainly affected Fort Erie. But again, they've kind of been sitting now on year to year, will they be back? And things were looking particularly bleak this year, and towards the end of the season or after the season closed, the government put out a report on horse racing in the province of Ontario and looked at Fort Erie and said, you know what, they really shouldn't have a season anymore. They should do some kind of festival. Fort Erie then responded and put together a plan to do a festival, which did not receive a good response, it seems, from the government. The government said, hey, do a festival. Fort Erie said, okay, here's our plan. And then the government was kind of negative, it seems like, on that. But subsequently, the news over the past couple of days, Fort Erie on for 2014. So that's good news. I mean, it's a historic track. We had Elisa Blow on regularly with us towards the end of their season, coming on the show, doing a little handicapping. And so I was kind of looking at the track regularly towards the end of their season last year after Saratoga ended and in through, I guess they ended in maybe October or early November. But the racing's kind of fun there. And as I say, it's a nice track. It's a nice facility. So it's good to see that they will continue in 2014. And it looks like essentially a full calendar of racing. They're looking at least 400 races, and you would have to think, that's probably 40-some days of racing. It'll begin sometime in May, but it is noted in the article announcing this. There's a quote from one of the players, the CEO of the company that oversees Fort Erie. He says, we won't have full specific details until the end of the month. But again, they're certainly happy that they've gotten an okay for 2014. One of the local politicians, though, noted, and it's the truth, they're once again on a year-to-year kind of thing, which is just not the way to go. It would be nice if the Ontario government addressed this from a little more of a long-term situation, so the folks out of Fort Erie kind of knew what the future held. But good news out there towards the Buffalo area for us. Over the border at Fort Erie, they will be racing in 2014. On another front, new racetrack perhaps, and this was kind of interesting. The folks down in Georgia have been chasing the potential to have horse racing there it's been a story knocking around in the news in a front burner kind of way for maybe 6 months or the better part of a year, whereas some folks down there in Georgia have been pushing to legalize parimutuel wagering, which would then allow them to put in a racetrack. Well, the news over the past couple of days has come out that legislation has been put forward, and it looks like, according to the article, that betting on horse racing could be moving closer to getting legalized. The parimutuel betting legalization bill seems to have the votes to pass, but according to this article, might be tabled until very early in 2015 because it's an election year, it seems like. And in some jurisdictions, parimutuel betting is a controversial idea. So it's out, the legislation in Georgia is out there. It seems like the votes are there to pass, but in this election year, maybe it won't happen this year. But it seems the way the folks tied into it are looking that at worst early next year. But what was interesting about the article I read, there's a rumor floating around out there that seems to be a lively rumor that perhaps the site of Turner Field, where the Atlanta Braves play, will be the future site of potentially a racetrack down there in the Atlanta area, as the Braves are moving to a new site in Cobb County down there. So Atlanta officials are perhaps going to look at that Turner Field. You know, I would assume the stadium is raised and a new racetrack is built. It's not like racing on the infield of the baseball diamond or anything, but that seems to be what the rumor is looking at potentially as the site for a racetrack. And as, again, we're probably looking a couple of years down the road at least before any of this happens, but it would be interesting to see if Georgia jumps into the states offering wagering. In a city like Atlanta, it would be really interesting to see how well horse racing would be supported down there. So things are moving in an interesting direction. We'll keep our eyes on that. With the racing over the weekend, always interesting to go back and see what some of the pundits are saying of the various lists, the Derby lists and whatnot. I always like to look at Mike Watchmaker and his Watchmaker Watch, which looks at all the divisions. He puts his top 10 in all the various divisions that are separated by Eclipse Awards. But coming out of the Don Handicap, his breakdown of older males, he has Wise Dan as his top older male, Mucho Macho Man right underneath. But Lee, in the third spot now, moves on to the list for the first time. And again, Watchmaker in these various divisions parses out his top 10. So Lee bounces onto the list at number 3 off of the big effort over the weekend. And again, 114 buyer figure for Lee. I've said it a couple times already. I said it earlier on the Handicappers Report. Sometimes horses just have a real affinity for that Gulfstream Park strip. So it will be interesting to see if Lee can keep things up. Bill Mott is now saying, Lee, they're looking interesting. They're looking Met Mile and Whitney as the two goals over the next 6 months or so for Lee. So we'll potentially we're looking at Lee up here at Saratoga in the Whitney. And hopefully that will also mean we'll take charge, because D. Wayne Lucas is certainly based at Saratoga in the summertime. So it could be shaping up. It's early, but it could be shaping up to be a fun Whitney. But Lee hits Watchmaker's list at number 3. Will Take Charge remains at number 4 there. Also notable over the weekend, the 3-year-old male list for Mike Watchmaker, a new addition at number 5, Candy Boy hits Mike Watchmaker's list. And if you look at the various Derby lists, Derby dozens and whatnot, Candy Boy seemed to attract the attention of a lot of the pundits. Mike Watchmaker kicks him onto the list at number 5. And I also found it interesting under older females. Groupie Doll moved up from number 6 last week on the Watchmaker list to number 4. And under his top, 4 or 5, I guess, he writes a little comment, just a little sentence about his top 4, each of them. And under Groupie Doll, he has, how can she retire after an effort like that? And, you know, boy, when you have a horse like that, you have to really say. And just from a fan standpoint, you'd like to see her keep racing. But she was sold at auction for $3.1 million last year. So I guess we're lucky we got a couple more races, the Cigar Mile and then Saturday's race. And Saturday's race was just such a nice exclamation point to go out on. I have no qualms with them heading to the sidelines with Groupie Doll after Saturday's effort. Speaking of Derby dozens, Steve Haskin has put out his latest Derby dozen on the Blood Horse website. He's a guy who really kicked off the whole concept of these Derby dozens. And so he's a guy who watches the 3-year-old trail, the Derby trail, very, very closely. Always like his opinion. And his latest Derby dozen, number 1, Top Billing. Number 2, Cairo Prince. But as I mentioned before, Candy Boy has jumped onto a lot of people's lists. And Haskin now puts Candy Boy at number 3 on his Derby dozen. He says he loved most about the effort in the Bob Lewis how willing Candy Boy was to be eased back on the turn and moved on the outside. Candy Boy hits his list at number 3. As I went down the rest of Steve Haskin's list, one of the horses that jumped out at me in his top 10, Mexicoma, who was an interesting 2-year-old for me last year. Only 3 starts in 2013, and I'm just pulling it up here. Saratoga, the career debut back at the end of July, ran 7th, then moved down to Delaware Park, middle of September. So had a layoff of the better part of 2 months. Won that Delaware Maiden Special pretty nicely. Off of that, they got ambitious, went out to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and finished 6th. But Mexicoma for Team Valor and Rick Matee, I thought was kind of interesting last year. I'm surprised, though, that somebody has him, as astute as Steve Haskin, as high as number 8. But this is one that I think could be a little bit interesting to follow this year. Again, found that one interesting last year. So now that Steve Haskin has this one on the list, I find it maybe even a little more intriguing. Also, down off of his list, he lists some horses who are just kind of under the radar or just missed his Derby dozen. One of those that I'm kind of looking forward to is Tonalist. He mentioned this one came back and broke the maiden in impressive fashion. And there's a lot to like about this colt. I agree, Tonalist for Clement is interesting to me. Midnight Hawk, he says, didn't really want to drop that one off his Derby dozen, but it was competitive for the final spot, and so Midnight Hawk misses. She Too is another horse that he found off the weekend to be interesting. So again, the latest Derby dozen from Steve Haskin is out there and available on bloodhorse.com. Before we go to the break, I have a couple of races just wanted to touch on from the weekend that we may not otherwise have a shot to look at. And one of those is going back to Saturday. Obviously, Sunday at Gulfstream Park, it was a very good stakes card. But Saturday, there was a couple of nice stakes races there as well. You had Paranda winning the Suwannee River. And then we're going to watch the stretch run here to the Gulfstream Park Sprint. Grade 3 event, $100,000 purse, 7 furlongs. And you see out there in front, it is Falling Sky with just a really kind of a breakthrough performance at 14-1. And it was interesting, this race then kind of dribbled over into Sunday in that Falling Sky, just before this breakout performance in Saturday Stakes, the last time out, Falling Sky had run a close-up second to Revolutionary. So folks were kind of thinking this flattered Revolutionary a little bit, and then Revolutionary threw in the dud on Sunday. But still, Falling Sky, very, very impressive in that win in the sprint stake at Gulfstream. And subsequently, George Weaver has now come out and said they might wait for the Carter, show up at Aqueduct April 5th to run in the Carter. Weaver's thinking as fast as he ran, we might wait for the Carter. And again, that was a kind of a breakout performance, 120.65 for the 7 furlongs. So they may be taking a little time off and coming back up in New York off of the big, big effort. Now let's shift our attention over to Tampa on Saturday. Their feature over there was the Manatee. 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares, $50,000 purse, 7 furlongs. Just wanted to show this one because it's another nice New York bred. There's so many of them floating out there. We like to tip our cap to not only New York breds, but horses who have run well before us right up here at Saratoga. And this horse, Risky Rachel, did win the Union Avenue this past summer up at Saratoga. Subsequently laid off from a 5th place finish in the Iroquois at Belmont until the 11th of January, where this horse won the Minaret pretty nicely down at Tampa. Follows up that seasonal debut win at Tampa with another win here. You see Risky Rachel at 2-5 doing it pretty easily. Again, in the Manatee down at Tampa. Nice New York bred. This is a 7-year-old New York bred that's fairly lightly raced. That was only the 19th career start for this 7-year-old, but 9 wins, 4 seconds for Risky Rachel. So as noted, a nice New York bred under Daniel Centino there at Tampa Bay. All right, that is going to take us to our first break. As noted, when we come back, Charlie Hayward is going to introduce his new website, thoroughbredracing.com. A little later on, Gary Johnson from Beulah Park. After that, Michael Chamberlain from Turf Paradise. All of that as Racing Across America continues. Stay tuned.
I'm Mark Cassano. Join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch. We'll inform, analyze, and welcome in the biggest names in racing. So join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch, right here on the OTB Television Network.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Wagering at capitalotbbet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
The Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back. That's right. The 2014 Capital OTB Handicapping Challenge Series is back, and it's your chance to win thousands in cash and prizes, and a seat at the 2015 Handicapping Championship in Las Vegas. This month's contest is the Shamrock Showdown on March 1st. So sign up today, online at capitalotb.com, or stop in at the Clubhouse Racebook.
I'm Anthony Moreno. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Happy to be joined now by Charlie Hayward. And as noted before the break, he has launched a new website called thoroughbredracing.com. We want to get a little background on that. Good morning, Charlie.
Hey, Seth, good morning. Great to talk with you as always.
Happy to have you on board because you launched the website within the past couple of weeks or so, and I wanted to tout folks on it and get them over there to visit and see what you have to offer. First up, I know the word of this was floating around at Saratoga last summer, so I know you've been working on it for a while. Give us an idea what the mission is as you see it, or what the niche is that you guys want to fill with thoroughbredracing.com.
Yeah, that's a great question. As I think the whole world knows, I got booted out of NYRA in May of 2012, and I decided that I really wanted to do something to stay in racing. I wasn't really interested in running another racetrack, and I just felt there was way too much negativity involved in racing, and so I had long been thinking of the idea of doing some kind of best practices on the international stage. Before I was at the Forum and while I was in publishing, I spent a lot of time in London and learned a lot about that. And, there are a lot of good people doing a lot of good things, and also other things that really need to be addressed, like steroids and drug testing. Takeout's another one. So I decided to go forward and do a website that would be internationally based. We have Ashley Harriman, who who used to work in the media department at NYRA, who's a Medill Graduate School, journalism school graduate, and she and I are here in New York with our Tom Quinones, our marketing director, and our other editor. And we have a full-time editor based in London and another one based in Malaysia. So we've been up since the 23rd of January, and we've had, stories from really all over the globe. A great series of reporting from Ireland. We had a 5-piece story on China and so forth. So, I'm excited to be staying in the game and, looking forward to, people commenting and I must say, as far as sites that I look at, one of the first things I look at every day is Equidaily. I think you do a great job, better than any other aggregator in the U.S. I saw Greg Wood this morning on The Guardian on the big fight that they're about to have on charging for data in the UK, which is a familiar story, as we know here in the U.S. So congratulations to you.
Thanks, I really appreciate that. And you talked, as you talk about the website, you talked about the international stories you have, and that China series was really great. I mean, I think that's a market everybody is salivating. They're hoping that they go to legalized wagering over there, because boy, you can just see all the potential over there. But you also have a nice article up right now about Italian racing, which has been under the gun for maybe the past couple of years or so. It seems like there is a lot of international content, and that is certainly a niche that hadn't been filled before. Was that kind of your thinking as you went to the international side a little bit?
Yeah, it's really, we wanted to do stories that would have general appeal. What's interesting is there's probably one of the best trainers in the world is in Australia, a woman named Gay Waterhouse, and we in the U.S. know a little bit about her. And she was one of the first stories that we put up, and even to this day, the most visited story on the site is the article on Gay Waterhouse. So, I think that we have intentionally done more non-U.S. stuff in the first 2.5 weeks just because we wanted to convince our colleagues around the world that we were serious about it. And if anything, we'd like to do a little bit more, U.S. racing. We've got a great piece coming from Alan Foreman. Alan is the lawyer for the National Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association and the NYRA Horsemen, but he's doing a great job on what needs to be done in drug testing, both from a testing perspective and the various testing methodologies and even the number of labs. So, yeah, we certainly have an international bent, but we also want to make sure we take care of our local market as well.
And I'm just looking at I have a printout of one of the web pages here, and you have the links up at the top of the page: racing, breeding, sales, owners and trainers, race courses, regulatory and wagering technology, aftercare. So it looks like the game plan is to have content that really covers the game, soup to nuts.
Yeah, we really, there's plenty of great sites, including your Capital OTB site, where you can go and get good betting information. You can place a bet if you want. We felt there's, the racing forum, there's plenty of places that you can do that. So if you want to look at entries or results, you're going to be disappointed coming to our site. But anything other than that, as you said, those 8 categories, and I think what eventually will be the most trafficked area on the site is that we have a calendar. So if you want to go to Saratoga and you've heard about this Jockey Club Roundtable, or you want to know when the Fasig-Tipton sales are, you can go in and check on that. If you're writing a book and you want to know, gee, I'd like to go do some research either in Kentucky or California, you can go to the resource and click on that, and it'll take you right to the Keenan Library. It'll take you right to the library right outside the gates at Santa Anita. So, we really would like to think of ourselves long-term as really advocating and giving the customers some of the best stuff in racing.
And you've already touched on this a little bit, but again, talk a little bit about your team and some of the writers you have, because I noted that some of those are internationally based as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, we have. We've probably actually published more British and Australian writers initially, but the guy that is our editor in the UK is a fellow named Chris Smith, and Chris Smith was the editor-in-chief at I'm blanking on it, but it's the Racing Post, which is their daily racing forum. And actually, a colleague of his, Paul Haig, is their guy who's based in Malaysia. And there's a woman named Nancy Sexton who's a really good bloodstock analyst. She's in Newmarket, but she specializes actually in American stallions. And she did a great piece for us on Warfront, whose stud fee's gone through the roof. The Coolmore boys have been buying a lot of those horses. And then we have some homebreds. We have our own Saratoga, Teresa Gennaro, did a great piece on Ken Ramsey and what Ken is doing to go internationally. So, yeah, we probably have a team of about 25 writers around the world that contribute on a regular basis.
Very good. And give me an idea of how often you're looking to turn over. When can folks look for fresh content? Daily, every couple of days? What's the game plan? And are you looking to change that as time goes forward, more and more content as you move along here?
Yeah, I think right now we're posting an average of about a story a day. As you saw last week, we did the 5 China stories. We actually did a 6th piece on aftercare. One piece that Mike Ziegler did. Mike was the original executive director of the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, and which I think is one of the best things that racing has done in the last year. So right now we're trying to post a minimum of a story a day. We'll probably increase that. Other areas that I'd like to see more interactive on the site would be shorter bits. We have a plan to do, little things like, give us your, 5 best races of the year, or what are the 5 biggest problems that we have in racing, and get some industry experts to come on, talk about that. And industry experts could be, jockeys, they could be owners, they could be trainers. We've got a big series of pieces planned on syndication. So, yeah, you should probably check out the site every day, and, we'll have some new, fresh content that you didn't see there yesterday.
Sounds good. And Charlie, we were talking before we went on the air. You have a fun article an interesting article focused on takeout. And I said to you, anytime you put takeout in the title, it's going to attract some attention. So I'm sure you get some hits on that. And as I say, we were talking a little bit during the break. The industry, to find the optimum takeout rate, I think has to be dedicated and look at it for a long-term kind of a situation. And I'm just not sure there's a willingness to do that at this point.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And one of the things that I try and do in the article is give people the benefit of the doubt as to why, takeout needs to be reduced. And, if you just look at it simplistically, which I try and talk about in the piece, our takeout rate has actually gone up in North America over the last 10 years when the competition for the gaming dollar has actually increased dramatically. And just take our own facility up there at Saratoga, not the thoroughbred track, but the harness track. When they put VLTs in there, they didn't put a 20% takeout like they have in horse trading. They put a 9% takeout, plus they give you all kinds of free play. So I think that, just rationally you can see your way to thinking that takeout should be reduced. But the question becomes, who does it first? How do you do it? In this simulcast world, if you're given a great takeout rate and someone gets a nice return, 25 years ago, they'd turn that money back into your pool because they wouldn't have an option. And today, they can go to Philly Park or some other place that is not your jurisdiction, might have a higher takeout rate. So our plan is to get some more authorities to come in and opine on the topic, put some information together, convince a couple of tracks to run for a whole year on a reduced basis, and not just a pick 5 takeout reduction, but, really make a serious effort to do it, because I think that we can demonstrate over time that a lower takeout will be better for the sport and will be creating financial returns for everybody, the owners, the trainers, the jocks, the breeders, and certainly the racetrack.
Yeah, at first blush, to people who don't look at the issue that closely, it may seem counterintuitive, but it's all about the churn. And you lower the takeout, the churn goes up, and so it seems like a win-win for everybody. But again, I think there's some optimal number that the industry has to figure out. Charlie, let's shift topics here just for a couple of moments before we let you go. I know you're
Sure.
a guy who plays, and so we had a big weekend of racing. What stood out for you this weekend?
Well, it's funny. I took my first break from here, and I went down to Tampa just by myself, which I love to bet that track. It's, not the biggest purses, but it's a lovely, fun track with very competitive racing. And I also bet in New York, and I bet in, obviously, some of the races at Gulfstream. And, I think they're doing a great job at Gulfstream. I think the racing card, it was you saw everything from Groupie. Groupie Doll sitting way off the pace, not a great field. You thought, oh my God! And I had visions of watching, the Breeders' Cup race when that filly went way back and then never moved. But she ran big. Lee, the horse that went to Mott. I didn't get a chance to listen to your show. I hope some of your guys picked that horse, because that was certainly a horse on the improve. But
I picked him.
Did you? Congratulations. That was...
Not to pat myself on the back, but what can I do?
Well, listen, you should certainly get credit for that. But the big horse ran pretty well, too, and, we'll see a lot more of Lucas's horse. And, even in New York, there was a couple of nice stakes races. And and I don't really play Southern California, but despite some of the issues they have out there, they continue to put on a good card. I was looking forward to making a few plays at Oaklawn, but the weather on Saturday and Sunday certainly interfered with their business, resulting in cancellation. So, yeah, I'm still at it. I just don't write about this game. I reach into my pocket every now and again and keep myself engaged in that regard.
No, I know. I've seen you up there in the shorts and the dress casually at Saratoga and out in the stands as well. So I know you're a player like we all are. It's a fun game and it's a real mind puzzle. I'm completely with you. I love Tampa Bay. I love the racing there. I love the racetrack itself. I'm also with you in the wintertime. I love the value over at Oaklawn. So I also was hurt a little last week. But the weather, maybe you should have a story about that on the website. The weather this winter has just affected virtually everyone east of the Mississippi, north and south. It's been certainly a crazy season. And Charlie, just before we let you go, I also want to pick your brain a little bit, kind of off topic, but you're
Sure.
a guy who was involved with book publishing as head of the Daily Racing Forum. You were also on the print side as far as news media as well. Boy, it seems like print has really changed, and now you're coming back with a website, so certainly you've recognized that. But just give me some of your thoughts on the print medium in the future, both books and newspapers.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You had a very good piece which touches on this topic by Greg Wood from The Guardian. I mentioned it earlier that's the racing industry, the Racing Post, are trying to up their prices for the data that they're putting out there. And I think, the big challenges that print companies have are how to, monetize their content. And I think the Internet, rightfully or wrongly, has, basically given people the idea that all content, should be free. And a lot of content is free, but, a lot of things are, you pay for what you get. And so I think that, our hope is, and we're a free site, we're sponsored by advertising and sponsorship, but we hope at the end of the day that the quality of the writing is ultimately what's going to be sustained. And, when I was in the book publishing business, we always had a little saying, if you had a choice of, a mediocre book and a really good marketing plan, or a really good book and a mediocre marketing plan, you always choose the good book because good content will out. So there's a couple of things to look at. I mean, Time Inc. is just now being separated from, the Time Warner family, and they've had a hard time monetizing their businesses and going to a digital standpoint, so I think that's something interesting to watch. But I think if you're generating good content, that's the future, whether it's print or in online.
Yeah, I just have found it interesting over the past few years to watch this. To me, I'm over in Amsterdam, New York, and we have a little newspaper, and it's just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk, and I don't think they're alone. But I always wonder, how do people follow the local school board without a local newspaper, or find out about a new restaurant? So I think the industry has to be reinvented a little bit, and maybe it will go over online. But I also think eventually people are going to have to get used to paying, because it just can't sustain itself if they're giving stuff away for free. So I find it a really interesting topic, and I still think we're in the evolutionary phase here. So it's always interesting to pick somebody's brain who's been on both sides of the equation.
Well, thank you.
Charlie, we certainly appreciate the visit this morning. And again, I'll tell people to visit the new website, thoroughbredracing.com, for some nice commentary on the sport, both nationally and internationally. So far, looks like you've gotten off to a good start. So again, Charlie, good luck on the website.
Listen, Seth, thanks a lot. And right after they check thoroughbredracing.com, they should go to equidaily.com and get some of the best news around the world.
Appreciate it. Thanks again, Charlie.
Okay, Seth, always a pleasure.
All right, we'll take our next break. When we come back, it's going to be Gary Johnson of Beulah Park. Stay tuned.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night school in the buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Cassano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today. Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Tuesday morning means a regular visit from Gary Johnson from Beulah Park. Good morning, Gary.
Hey, good morning, sir.
I always like to remind people they can find Gary's selections each and every day on the Beulah Park website. Gary, for folks who are playing Beulah this afternoon, what's your weather look like?
Weather's cold. It's cold in a lot of places. It's going to be, 10, 15 degrees. It's going to be really cold. I'm anticipating it's going to be pretty fast tracked, and normally when it gets a little cold, the track does play speed naturally because you're going to have a hard surface.
And Gary, it was funny, we had Dave Grenig from the Racing Forum on with us on Sunday morning. He, of course, covers New York racing, and he noted, not yesterday, but last Monday, the weather closed Aqueduct, and so I guess the Beulah handle went through the sky.
Yeah, I think what happens is a lot of people, or a lot of horse bettors, are, even they're going to the track to bet Aqueduct, and actually you want the action. It's kind of like me, if I can't get on a poker table, I'll go play the slots. But yeah.
I think that's exactly it. I think it went, just night before you've handicapped Aqueduct, and then you're all set to play. Aqueduct's canceled. Now it's, okay, what's next? And Beulah picked up some of that slack, so good for them. Certainly that's a nice...
Yeah. I think in the general manager down there, he'll make every attempt to run if he gets that word early that like a parks are closed and actually not Aqueduct on Mondays. They'll do whatever they can to get these guys out there riding, and I did notice they go right to the gate, but they do run.
Yeah, and I've said it a number of times over the past week or so. The weather is kind of hitting everybody this winter, but Beulah certainly plugging through, and we'll look at some Beulah action for this afternoon. Kick things off, get some thoughts on the second race, which is a calendar condition claimer at the $4,000 level. They're going to go 5.5. What were your thoughts on race 2?
The second race, we have the one Elroy Chase, the 9 to 5 morning line, and nationally on paper is pretty consistent. But I noticed last time out, the horse had a really tough time in the gate. It's a huge favorite out of the one hole, so I'm going to take a little shot at beating it. Not with a big long shot, but with a 4 Archie Trucker, another new name. I mean, we've been really hot with horses coming in from other tracks, and Archie Trucker coming out of those open races. I do notice the turfway work. So the horse is coming in from Kentucky. So I really think he is the standout here.
Yeah, that is certainly a venue relief kind of move coming in from Churchill. Archie Tucker, the number 4 horse in the second. Let's look out at race number 5 this afternoon. State-bred claiming event for fillies and mares, 3-year-olds and up. $5,000 tags. They're going to go 3/4 of a mile. And your thoughts on the 5th?
Yeah, the 5th race here, my top choice is going to be the one, Cruella Zelvilla. I mean, these things are a little goofy, but I do like the 1 and the 5th, so we remember that. That's the good part when you go bet. You don't have to tell them the name. So if you notice, this horse ran against a horse called Judy's Reflection, who is in the 7th today, and she's an Ohio-bred filly that has a lot of class, and she is really, really tough to beat down there. And Cruella Zelvilla chased her last time, and what I really like is she was at the half-mile pole, she was 3 lengths behind, but if we notice the 3 Swiss Miss 2 out of the same race was 7 behind, so she was definitely a clear second. And if she opens up that clear lead today, which I think she will, I think she'll be long gone.
All right, yeah, a little speed play in there. And I'm with you. I kind of, if they're well beaten, then you look at how far they were ahead of the next horse. And if they're clear there, you can kind of say, well, the winner was maybe a little freakish, but the second place horse was pretty talented as well. And Gary, when I'm in here most mornings doing the handicapping show just prior, So I have to say that you do the handicapping sheet for the website, so you just type in the names. But I have to say the names each and every day. And believe me, if I can pronounce them wrong, I do. So don't feel bad.
I feel bad for the announcers. I don't know how they do it.
Oh, yeah, I don't either. And I often wonder if they call the owners sometimes, because some of them, it's completely a mystery. But and in fact, over the weekend, we had talked about it on the show already, Lee and Leah for the winner down at Gulfstream. They were pronouncing that two different ways all weekend long, and that's only 3 letters. So
three letters. What is the correct way, by the way?
I'm going Lee, because I looked up on the internet and found a pronunciation, actual audio recording of a pronunciation on an online dictionary, and it was Lee. So I'm sticking with that.
I'm going to go with you. We're going to go.
There you go. All right, the 8th race this afternoon. Calendar condition claimer at the $2,000 level. Fillies and Mares, 3-year-olds and up. They'll go 6 furlongs.
Yeah, recently, you know, as I was getting prepared for you to call, the 8th race wasn't one of my races, but the scratches come in. And in the 8th race, we had 2 scratches. We had the 1 and the 4 scratch. So it took out a couple of the speed horses, and I'm going to go with my original top choice, which is the 3 Ole the Pretty Baby. I think I got that one right.
I think you do.
The Pretty Baby. Come out of a 4.5, and you know, these 4.5 sprints, everybody that thinks they have a fast horse enters in them, and they usually have like a quarter-horse race. And it's kind of tough for a horse that might have a little more speed going 3/4 to really compete 4.5. So I think today, stretching out 3/4 with these scratches, Old Pretty Baby, it's going to be overlooked also, might get a decent price. So that's going to be my top choice.
Yeah, those kind of situations are interesting, because if people do handicap the night before, they may overlook that with those 2 other, particularly the number 1, Tommy Sue got even as the speed. Now the speed comes out, as you say, might get a little bit overlooked and could be the lone speed in there.
Yeah, we are. By the way, we are coming out of a condition 3,500, and it was multiple winners, and now we're going into now 2 years. Big class relief also.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's a little class drop there as well. Gary, we mentioned it already, Lee on the weekend. It was a big weekend all over. There's some nice races out in Southern California where you had the 3-year-olds, the Bob Lewis Candy Boy, Game On Dude Gets Beat, Lee on the weekend, Groupie. What stood out to you over the weekend?
Well, Lee. I must tell you, Lee, I like Lee. I handicapped that race, and I thought it was really born to speed. I think Lee in the new barn last time was a new horse, and didn't disappoint me. Actually, that was a horse I liked for the weekend, and it was just, it was a tough race for a closer to get up, with not a whole lot of pace to run at. But yeah, I was impressed with Lee.
And speaking of that, no shame and will take charge. I think he was absolutely up against it with the move Lee made at the top of the stretch. Just tough to make up that kind of ground on the Gulfstream Park stretch run. So I thought will take charge. No shame there.
No doubt about it. And Lee, I like the fact that it kind of laid second. He might be in for something this year. I mean, I've seen these things do a turnaround, and I kind of didn't have them in my vocabulary until this past weekend. It's pretty impressive.
I'll ask you, though, as a former trainer and who's bounced around to different tracks and different surfaces, I've said it a couple times already. Lee, to me, and I used Lee on top on Sunday, too. I thought that race last time was impressive enough that it just could have been a turnaround kind of effort. But horses tend to freak a little bit over that Gulfstream Park strip. So I want to see one with another race from Lee on another track before I really am convinced he's the real deal in the handicap division.
Right, and I'm with you, and you get a couple of those spots where you're going to get a couple other speed horses, and, and then naturally, we'll take charge, going to come flying, and we'll be the, it's a setup kind of, but Lee had everything kind of his way, but he did get the job done, as you and I expected.
Yeah, it was definitely very impressive. Groupie Doll earlier I thought was really impressive. That was a Hollywood story with the way she got out of the gate and then made the move in the stretch.
That was freakish, and I happened to be watching the show pole in there because the day before Game On Dude, somebody took a big plunge and on the show pole, so I was watching the Groupie Doll show pole, and then, out of the gate I was thinking, I hope it isn't the same person, but boy, was she impressive. She circled the field,
Yeah, down the backstretch, you're saying, oh, how unfortunate she's going to go out with a real dud. And then on the turn, bingo, the Jets went on. That was a wild performance.
That was impressive. That was a good story there.
Gary, we certainly appreciate the visit this morning. As always, good luck this afternoon. We'll catch up with you again next week.
I appreciate it. A lot of fun. Talk to you next week.
Gary Johnson from Beulah Park. We'll take our last break of the hour. When we come back, Michael Chamberlain from Turf Paradise, where I'm sure it's warmer than virtually any place else we've talked about today. Stay tuned.
I'm Jeff Carl. Join me Saturdays and Sundays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the weekend in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekends at 9, only here on the OTB TV network.
I got it. Watch me. I got it. Hey! I got something that makes me want to shout. I got something that tells me what it's all about. I got a move that tells me what to do. If you don't, brothers and sisters, then you won't know what it's all about.
Hey, race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook and get in the game. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, fantastic food and drinks, an amazing Vegas-style atmosphere with seating for nearly 900 of your closest friends. Conveniently located at 711 Central Avenue, right off Exit 5 of I-90 in Albany, the Clubhouse Racebook is the better choice.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
This is Steve Beck. Join me Tuesday through Saturday here on OTB TV for At the Races, my Sirius XM daily news magazine of the thoroughbred industry. Handicapping, interviews, analysis, everything you could want. 6 a.m. OTB TV.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Tuesday morning also means a visit from Michael Chamberlain at Turf Paradise. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning.
And as always, like to catch up. Folks playing Turf Paradise this afternoon. What's the weather look like?
It's going to be a gorgeous day here in Phoenix. 78 degrees, the high temperature. The sun is shining, and it's just supposed to keep getting hotter and hotter as the week goes. We're even supposed to be threatening maybe 90 by Saturday.
Nice. Yeah. But so by Saturday, you'll be about 90 degrees warmer than we are around here this morning. So, yeah, how's that for, yeah. Okay, we're living the envy life out here watching Turf Paradise this afternoon, but we can live with that. All right, let's take a look at a couple races for this afternoon. A little bit later on, as I promised earlier, we're going to preview the weekend stakes action, the Phoenix Gold Cup out there at Turf Paradise on the weekend. But let's kick things off today. Take a look at the late double. We'll look at the 8th race, which is a B-level claimer, 6,250 tags, 3-year-olds and up, scheduled on the grass at 1 1/16 miles. And Michael, I was on the Handicappers Report earlier, and I thought Farmer Giles was kind of interesting on the class drop in the second start on the move from Southern California. I have your horse in the mix, however, Aerial Artist underneath, but give us some thoughts on why you're going with the 5-horse.
Well, Aerial Artist, first of all, I mean, you get Kitten's Joy on the turf, which is always a good thing to start with, and you have the leading rider, Jorge Carreño, aboard, riding for Eric Cooljack today. And this horse did try an allowance non-winners of 3 last time out and was in contention in the stretch, was just a length off the lead before the closers got there and started to run past. And you get a rider change today to our leading rider. And if you look back at some of the past performances here, this horse was running in Southern California and doing quite well in some very tough claiming spots. And opened $3,200 claimer back in June at Betfair Hollywood. The horse won at today's distance of 1 1/16 miles. Then tried up at Golden Gate in August after that, led into the stretch, which was one of the few times this horse has actually shown any initiative to go to the lead. Usually this horse will sit off the pace a little bit, but it had the lead in the stretch, ended up running 4th, and then again disqualified to 5th. Couple of turf sprints after that before coming here to turf. So I think a little bit longer distance is going to be a help, and I think that this race could be a good position, although I must say on the pick 5, the 2 horses I used were Aerial Artist and Farmer Giles. I think Farmer Giles could be tough to beat as well.
Yeah, they both look interesting to me. I also had Landon Mauve in the mix, the number 8 horse. I think all 3 of those, I think the winner comes from one of those 3, all on kind of similar angles, some class relief off of some efforts that seem to be indicating these horses can compete in here. All right, let's look at the finale this afternoon. Again, completing that late double, the ninth race, conditional claimer at the 3,500 level. The condition non-winners at 2 lifetime. They're going to go 5 furlongs. And I have your horse right underneath, and I may be rolling the dice a little bit, but I went with Brojack, the Robertino Diodoro horse, on the quick turnaround where he's got limited numbers, but boy, he does very well when he comes back this quickly. So I took a little bit of a shot with Brojack, but your selection was the one that probably was the most likely winner. As I say, I'm rolling the dice maybe a little bit with Brojack, but give us your selection.
My pick is right to the inside of Brojack, number 3, Haya Haya. This horse broke the maiden 3 starts back on December 11th, going 5.5 furlongs, and did it very impressively. At odds of 12-1, went out and won by 3.5 lengths, and was really very nice in that performance. Came right back to run at this 3,500 non-winner of 2 level, and just missed winning again. Had the lead late in the stretch, ended up finishing second, lost by a nose, and then tried to jump up into the allowance rank last time out, and did flash some early speed, going 5.5 furlongs, but ended up fading out a little bit and running 6, but was still within 5 lengths of the winner in a very competitive field of 10. So I think the class relief is going to help this horse quite a bit. You get Daniel Vergara getting the ride here on Haya Haya, who I think is, as you say, the most likely winner in the spot, but I can't falter for using Brojack. And the reason you mentioned was the only reason that I really didn't pick Brojack, is I just can't get myself to go to a horse that just ran 4 days ago and on that quick turnaround. It gives me the willies, to put it nicely.
I'm always intrigued when trainers, particularly high percentage trainers, do things that are a little out of the norm. But then I was more attracted by, as I say, it is a very limited sample, but according to the Racing Form, Diodoro has had 7 horses come back within a week's time, and he's won 71% of the time. So
that's impressive.
Yeah, it's kind of an incredible stat there. But again, aberrations attract my attention a little bit. All right, Michael, let's look out, as promised, a nice weekend of stakes action coming up, highlighted by the Phoenix Gold Cup. And we were talking during the break. I have in front of me the past performances of the nominations. You said the actual fields have been assembled already, so you can give us some ideas there. And while we talk, I pulled up some video going back to December 7th. We're going to watch LA Weekend win the Caballos del Sol at Turf Paradise, and do so pretty convincingly at a 5 cent to the dollar favoritism, and also doing so pretty convincingly in 107.39, a blazing fast 6 furlongs. LA Weekend seems to be pretty interesting coming up in the Phoenix Gold Cup, having run off what now? What are we looking at? 1, 2, 3 race win streak coming into this. But you and I were talking during the break, LA Weekend might be hampered a little bit by the post position.
He ended up drawing the far outside post, number 12, in the field of 12. And, he did win this race last year, and he won it very impressively, just dominating the field on Phoenix Gold Cup Day. He has won 2 stakes races this season already. That Caballos del Sol you mentioned on December 7th, which everyone got to see with that great time, and then came back to win the Swift Stakes on January 25th. He is clearly the king of the leading barn here for Robertino Diodoro at Turf Paradise. But there are some challengers to his throne in this spot, and I think the one that may be the most interesting is the Jerry Hollendorfer-trained Moonshine Bay. I ended up drawing the number 2 post position, so he's a little bit more down toward the inside. This horse's last performance was on February 2nd, running 3rd in the Grade 2 Palos Verdes at Santa Anita, and had been 2nd in the ungraded Midnight Loot in the start right before that. So it's not going to be a walkover for LA Weekend in any way, shape, or form. You also have a Mike Chambers horse in here, and he's always a name to watch at Turf Paradise, in Hammer's Terror, who ran in the Cotton Fitzsimmons Mile last time out, at a mile on the grass, and ran a very credible 3rd, was part of a blanket finish in that race. It was a very exciting finish. He was right there for that, so he's cutting back in distance and going into a tough sprint spot. That's an interesting move, I think, by a guy that's always a tough nut to crack here at Turf Paradise, and Mike Chambers. I mean, you've got some really good horse flesh in the Phoenix Gold Cup this weekend. It's going to be a fun race, and I think it's going to be a very nice capper to our Saturday of 3 stakes races and some very fun racing.
Yeah, it looks like a big day out there, and again, a nice full field, and it should be very competitive. We'll talk a little bit on the recap next Tuesday morning for the Phoenix Gold Cup. Michael, before we let you go, been asking all the guests so far. It was a big weekend of racing, coast to coast, 3-year-olds and older. What stood out to you from the weekend of racing?
Well, I was very happy that they ran the Robert Lewis about an hour after they closed the Kentucky Derby.
Me too.
Because I got a couple of bucks down on Sandy Boy. It's 32-1.
So did I. Congratulations. Yeah. I like that the pool closed a little early this year. It played to my advantage. Yeah, no question about it.
Absolutely. I got a little bit on him, so very happy with that. And I was really impressed with the race that Lee ran also in the Don Handicap, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do the rest of this year. That was a very impressive performance against a very good horse and Will Take Charge, and I think those 2 races kind of were the big standouts this weekend.
Yeah, no question about it. And the other one I've talked about a few times already, Groupie Doll, who had that Hollywood ending to the career.
Yes, absolutely. It's nice to see her go out with a nice win like that, and you always like to see him go out on top. That's always a really nice touch, as you said, a Hollywood ending.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, Michael, as always, appreciate the visit. Good luck this afternoon, and also to you and everybody down at Turf Paradise on what is shaping up to be a nice weekend down there, highlighted by that Phoenix Gold Cup. And again, we'll recap that next week. So good luck this afternoon. We'll talk to you next Tuesday.
Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
All right. Michael Chamberlain from Turf Paradise. Prior to that, we had Gary Johnson from Beulah Park. We kicked things off. Charlie Hayward, who has the new website, thoroughbredracing.com. Check that out as well. All of that brings us up to the end of the program. Do want to remind you one more time of some of the events coming up during the month of February right here at capitalotb.com. The next couple of Saturdays, there will be an online show Viver contest, the 15th and the 22nd. Also over the next 2 Saturdays. On the 15th, there is a Fan Appreciation Day at the Cleats branch. On the 22nd, Prize Wheel Day down here at the Clubhouse Racebook. You can't beat that. Spin the big prize wheel. Also down here at the Clubhouse Racebook in a little over a week or so, a couple of weeks down the line, a better part of a couple of weeks. Friday the 21st, the $500 happy hour bankroll returns with Brian Nadeau right here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Again, that's the 21st. 23rd, there's a Sunday syndicate bankroll via capitalotb.com. And don't forget, Mondays in the month of February, there's a $100 knockout challenge right here, Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. And don't forget also, if you're a participant in the handicapping series here at Capital OTB, the next version of the handicapping series is the March Shamrock Showdown. That's on March 1st, so mark that in your calendar. March 1st is the next handicapping series of the Capital OTB series, and those happen right here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. You can find out more information about all of these events and promotions at capitalotb.com. That's going to wrap things up for Racing Across America for this Tuesday morning. I'm Seth Merrill. We're in here every Monday through Friday from 10 until 11 a.m. A little bit earlier, Mike Jarbo and I were on the Handicappers Report. We looked at Turf Paradise and Parks. Hopefully we gave you some good information. So whichever track you're betting, cash some tickets this afternoon. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.